Hello everybody and welcome to episode 15 of the Shiny Bees podcast. Swans, clowns and unicorns. Today is Sunday the 1st of March and coming up in today's show we've got some news, we've got all the rundown and gossip from PodRetreat with a giveaway, and we have the famous Shiny Bees pass and pick.
I need a friend, I need some help.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Shiny Bees podcast. This one is of course coming to you from our new location, yet another new house in Bonnie, Scotland. How are you all? I hope you've all been having a good time since I last spoke to you and hope you're all well. I had planned to record a few weeks ago actually, on a kind of tighter, newer schedule, and I had everything written. But when I moved to Scotland, I got some dirty Scottish germs, and I got a cold. I never get ill, ever. The last time I was ill, I got flu, was when I got married. That was like 5.5 years ago. So I never get sick. But I obviously picked up some kind of weird Scottish germs that I don't have any inbuilt immunity to. And unfortunately, that was only just cleared up, really. So I've had a podcast ready to go for quite a while, but I sounded a bit like I had my head full of sawdust, so I couldn't really record. I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear that I'm now feeling 100% better again. I don't really believe in colds being sickness, to be honest. They're not that bad. I don't like to malinger or anything, so it was very frustrating. But that has now gone, so I'm back with you. We have landed here in Fife in Scotland, which is commonly known as the Kingdom of Fife, and it is situated between the Firth of Tay to the north and the Firth of Forth, which is to the south. A person from Fife is known as a Fifer, and it is Scotland's third largest local authority area by population. The resident population is around 360,000, and a third of these people live in the three principal towns of Dunfermline, Kirkcaldy, or Kirkcaldy if you want to do it properly in Scottish, like they do on the train, and Glenrothes. I am very much looking forward to doing some exploring of my new local area, and I know already there are quite a few yarn shops to go and have a look at, which I'm going to hopefully get round to over the next few weeks, and I can share that with all of you. I ventured north into Dundee a couple of weeks ago now to a meeting with a friend of mine who asked me to go along with her to a meeting of skeptics in the pub, which is a meeting of skeptics in a pub as it sounds, and these groups happen all over the country apparently. This was my first ever meeting of skeptics in the pub. It will no doubt surprise you to hear. So I went along to listen to a talk on cryptozoology and whether it was a science or a pseudoscience, as you do on a Monday night. So we went to this really old man sort of pub in Dundee with very, very retro 1970s signs outside, and pitched up to this meeting of skeptics in the pub. And on the way, we were actually talking in the car, and my friend Harriet was laughing and saying about how we have such niche hobbies, and I'm always banging on about knitting club and knitting retreats, and she's dragging me along to a meeting of skeptics in the pub to listen to a talk on cryptozoology. So giggle we did, and off we went into the talk, and it became quickly obvious when we went in that there were a lot of terribly, terribly geeky people there. Lovely people. I like geeks, so it didn't bother me at all. But you know when you go into a place and you're really not geeky enough, and you used to be pretty much the geekiest person, and then you get there and you realise that there's a whole new level of geeky that you could only aspire to. Well, that was us. We were like the cool kids. So we sat down and listened to the talk. Really, really interesting. Not too much talk about the Loch Ness Monster. But half time came, and it was time to visit the ladies and get more drinks and stuff. So off I went next door into the back room to go through to the ladies. And who do I find in there but the knitting group? The knitting group that had been kicked out of the room we were in because the skeptics in the pub were in there. At which point I thought, I really am in the wrong room, aren't I? And normally I bring my knitting, but I wasn't sure whether that would be appropriate for skeptics in the pub, and I kind of chickened out a little bit because I thought I might have to concentrate quite hard on what was being said. So I didn't bring it, otherwise I could have just done the second half of the meeting in with the knitting group. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to go back yet, because I've been quite busy on Monday evenings, but hopefully this week I'll get to go back and go and chat to them all again. They all seemed very, very nice. I spent the whole interval chatting to them about knitting, so that was good. And other than that, I've been away on PodRetreat, which I mentioned last time, and it was just, it must be a couple of weeks prior to going, and it was organised by Nick from Yarns from the Plane and Amy from Knit Spin Cake Podcasts. So that has got its own separate section, because it's quite a long one, and I just wanted, for those people, there were quite a few people who wanted to go and didn't get the opportunity to, so I thought it'd be quite good fun to share the kind of yarny stuff we got up to and a couple of the funnier aspects of our trip, so that you don't feel that you've been left out. In other yarny news, yesterday we posted out the first quarter club for the Golden Skein, which was dyed to the theme picture of Tornado over London. I'm very, very excited to see how these yarns are received and see exactly what people make with them. Hopefully they'll all arrive tomorrow. It's going to be a very exciting Monday for everyone. Everyone needs cheering up on a Monday, let's be honest. So we'll see how we get on. Come and join our Ravelry group if you would like. You don't need to be a member of the Golden Skein to do that. We've had a few new members and it's quite good fun to see some new people in there as well. We will be listing shortly any leftover skeins that we had from the trial club yarn, so if you missed out on that but would like to get your hands on some of that stuff now, it will be available soon. We've also introduced in the Golden Skein a pay by monthly instalment option, because a lot of our customers were asking for that option to be available, so we did that because we want everyone to be happy and to have lots of nice yarn. So no more on the Golden Skein for now, but in the next update I will let you know what everyone's been making and how everything went down with that. If you would like to go and look at any further information on the Golden Skein, it can be found at www.thegoldenskein.com. So I think we should go on to PodRetreat. So, as I mentioned, we attended PodRetreat last weekend, and I can safely say I have not laughed as much in a long, long time. It was hilarious. I had so much fun. It is untrue. It was organised by Nick from Yarns to the Plane podcast and Amy from Knit Spin Cake, as I mentioned, and basically consisted of 4 days in a very large old Victorian villa in Chester. I love Victorian architecture. As you all know, the Money Pit is a Victorian house and continues to plague me with problems since the last podcast that I'm not going to bore you with. So I absolutely loved the house because I love Victorian architecture, and I just think that the Victorians have such a sense of style when it comes to buildings and interiors that they may not have quite survived the ages in this particular property, but more on that later. I decided to get the train because when I signed up to PodRetreat, I lived in Lincolnshire and it wasn't actually that far to drive, but by the time we were actually going, I lived in Fife and it was considerably further to drive, so I decided to get the train down instead and make the most of the 5 hours of knitting time on the way there and another 5 hours on the way back in first class because it was cheap because it's a weekend. So I thought I'd treat myself to a little bit extra leg room and go first class on the way back, which was pretty reasonable actually. As I mentioned, the house was lovely. It was like I said, big old Victorian villa on a big wide road going into Chester in Huff Green, I think it is. It was just hilarious from the minute we rocked up. The owner of the property obviously has quite a niche taste in art, and most of the bedrooms and a lot of the downstairs reception rooms were covered in what can only be described as dodgy 70s sci-fi soft porn fantasy clown art. And if that sounds like a mouthful and a little bit dodgy, believe me, you've seen nothing till you've seen the pictures. Amy from Knit Spin Cake apparently took some photos of the art, and I will be delighted to share these with you on the blog, subject to her approving that. I'm sure she won't deprive you of this viewing pleasure. So, yeah, quite apart from this really dodgy clone art, including one in the dining room, and you've got to eat while you're looking at this, that involved basically a woman, scantily clad woman, with nothing on but a kind of, she had her boobies out for a start, and some kind of strategically placed sort of wafts of fabric around her other areas that were being held in place by flying swans. She also had stockings on, and around the top of those, around the kind of the border of those, were white swans as well. And she's floating through the air with these 3 massive big kind of peacock feathers in her hair as well, or ostrich feathers in her hair. And in the background, there's a clone with a hoop that she's sort of floating towards with her boobies out. Really, really odd, and set the tone really for the rest of the dodgy kind of art, some of which was quite scary. We're not sure whether the art was just a kind of fetish of the owner or whether she painted it, but yeah, definitely a talking point. And as was the I Love Me wall in the... Sorry, the dogs have just got up off the couch there. I'm not entirely sure why. Something's obviously happening. Where was I? Yeah, the I Love Me wall in the hallway, which basically consisted of a gallery of pictures of the owner, looking exactly the same as she now as she did then, it would seem. I didn't get to meet her, unfortunately. I'm very disappointed about that. Including one choice picture where she's vaulting a wooden fence. Sorry, Womble, am I boring you, lad? That was Womble. He's my little snorkel dog. And yeah, one choice picture of the owner in vaulting a wooden fence in a white batwing shell suit. So you can kind of imagine how long they've been up there. But it was just hilarious. That just set the kind of tone for the rest of the time, really. There was also another comedy picture downstairs in the sort of morning room, and it was like a side-on portrait, a hand stencilled, drawn portrait of the owner, or Princess Diana. We're not sure whether it was Princess Diana or supposed to be, or the owner in the style of. But that was also downstairs in the morning room and provided us with much entertainment. The weekend was extremely well organised by Nick and Amy, and we got a fab goodie bag when we arrived, which was just so exciting. The goodie bag itself was made by Daisy Bamboo Designs, which you will be familiar with if you listen to Amy's podcast. It is run by Amy and her mum, and from what she was saying, it's pretty much Amy's the big boss, and her mum works in a kind of sweatshop making these bags for us all. So because apparently every time Amy touches a machine it breaks, so she makes her mum do it. And her mum is absolutely lovely. I've met her at Yarndale and she's really, really nice. So they were in the pattern. The pattern on those was licorice all sorts, and I absolutely love licorice, so I was absolutely made up. And inside there were lots of different goodies. We got a little lap cloth for spinning from the Cheshire Guild of Spinners, Weavers and Dyers, and also a beautiful skein of yarn that had been hand dyed by Nick. Now, a few months ago she kind of put a few things in a little shop on Etsy, and I had my eye on an orange skein. And I was like, right, I'm going to go back and buy that. And by the time I actually got round to it, it had gone. But she also dyed some fibre then as well. And I think it's something that she's experimenting with at the moment. And she used an inspiration picture, which I thought obviously was amazing, like the golden skein. So, and this was a picture of some Roman men, really. There is a proper name for it that eludes me at the moment. But basically, imagine Rome, kind of armour, red skirts, little red mohawk on the head. The picture was that. So the colourway came out and it had some kind of the browns of the leather, the very red kind of bright colour of the little mohawk, I'm sure it's got a proper name. I don't know what it is. I'm going to call it a mohawk. Some of the greys of the armour and some of the kind of the orange and gold colours as well. It was absolutely lovely. So I got all excited and caked that up on Amy's machine. And I've never seen so many ball winders and swifts in one place, as if we hadn't all packed about 1 million projects to do anyway. But that was fun. We had a great time winding yarn. And that I'm probably going to knit up into Knit Night, which is a pattern by Louise Asbangham, and that is for a shawl, a garter stitch shawl. That's a really kind of easy, simple pattern to remember. So that's what it's called, Knit Night. You can take it to Knit Night and not have to worry about it. You can chat away, and it's an easy pattern to follow. So I think it might become that, either that or some socks, but Knit Night is winning at the moment. We also got a little badge which I've stuck on my little project bag, a PodRetreat 2014 badge, and some stitch markers which are also from Daisy Bumby Designs. These are lovely, the very kind of classic little white stitch marks with little knitting abbreviations on them, and they look like they're going to be really useful and really kind of chic when you've got your little knitting project out, so that should be good. There was also in the bag, I know there's loads of stuff, some Aran yarn from Rowan, and Amy and Nick have both designed patterns, a different pattern each that went with this yarn. So I think I will make the hat that Amy designed out of that, which I think is going to be lovely. It's really nice and soft. And I will tell you about this now before I continue with the rest of the story, because I will forget otherwise. But Amy and Nick very kindly donated a ball of the Rowan yarn and a PodRetreat badge for a giveaway for the podcast. So, for those of you who wanted to go and didn't get the chance to, or would just like a badge and some yarn, to enter, all you need to do is leave a comment on the thread for this episode on my Ravelry group, which is just Shiny Bees Podcast, or you can just tweet me at Shiny Bees with the hashtag PodRetreat to enter. You'll get an entry for each of those if you do both, and you will also get an entry for every retweet you do of the tweet announcing episode 15, which is this episode. The closing date for that is the 31st of March, and I will let you know about the winner as soon as thereafter. Anyway, onward from the competition. I thought it would be pertinent to tell you about all the different activities we got up to, because Nick is a school teacher, and we had to do some education while we were there, and it was really good fun, very interesting. The first day we didn't actually get up to much, because we all got there about sort of 3 o'clock-ish, and by the time we got there and got back to the house and unpacked and stuff, we just chilled. And on the Friday we went to Macclesfield Silk Museum and Paradise Mill. We had a private tour of Paradise Mill, which was a fully working mill until the late 80s, I think it was. But we had a private tour, as I mentioned, which was given by a very knowledgeable guide. She was lovely, actually, and she knew loads of different stuff about all the different aspects of the silk production and about all the machinery and things, and it was really interesting. And the building essentially was left as it is now when it closed down, and they obviously got together and got enough money to keep the machinery and to keep it all going as a kind of monument, really, I suppose, to the silk industry in Macclesfield. And that particular factory was quite famous for producing different jacquards, in producing them by hand until like the very last days, essentially. It was really interesting walking around, because all the old machinery is there, and it's up on the top floor, because that's where it would have been from Victorian times, because that's where the light was, and they didn't have electric lights when the mill was built. But the wood on the floors was really big, massive planks, but it was really creaky, and you could just feel the age and the character kind of in the room, really. It was amazing, very interesting stuff. She was also telling us about how they use a lot of children in the industry to do certain jobs, and when she was giving the demonstrations, it looked quite easy, and she was like winding these little bobbins and things, and then Nick had a go, and she's a spinner and everything, so you'd think she'd be good at it, but she started talking and it went everywhere, and she cut a finger, and you just think, there were 5-year-olds doing that, you know, it must have been quite dangerous. That's no slight on Nick, and I'm not saying that she's a complete klutz or anything, but can you imagine a 5-year-old doing those kinds of jobs? It's pretty scary, really. And after that, we went down to the Silk Museum, which is just adjacent to Paradise Mill, and walked around there, and that's a lot more kind of set up with exhibitions, and everything's up on the wall and laid out so you can look at things. What I thought was particularly good in there was the amount of activities for children to do as you go around the museum. There was obviously a lot of information for adults and things to look at, and then there was special kind of areas to entertain the children where they could look under microscopes at different fibres and do little different bits of weaving and match colours up to dyes and all sorts of things that would have kept them quiet for a little while at least. And also upstairs in the museum there was a textile artists exhibition, and had all these organza dresses hung up from the ceiling that were just floated in the room that looked like a load of ghosts. It was really strange, and each one had been decorated by a different textile artist, and all of the work of how they came to be inspired by it was in the journals, and you could look at that and look at what they produced and see how they got there, so that was quite interesting as well. There's also a little cafe in there with some very, very reasonably priced cake. So if you are in the area of Macclesfield, I would definitely recommend going there because it is well worth a look. It's very interesting for anyone who's really interested in kind of fibre arts, really. After we'd had our educational morning, we were hungry, so we went to Wetherspoons, did a bit of knitting, and I didn't have any beer, but some of the other people may have drunk toffee, apple cider, etc. Which, again, it's always good fun on a Friday afternoon to be, you know, away from the children and doing whatever you want, really. That evening, after we got back to the house, we did a swap as well, which was suggested by one of the ladies who was attending, and I was fortunate enough to get her parcel, which was a massive win on my part. And the plan was just to do a swap from stash or make something to the value of about 15 quid, bring it along, and we'll all swap it, and it's kind of like free then, isn't it, because it's stuff that you already had, which I thought was a really good idea. So my thought process for that was I was going to liberate a golden skein, essentially, and it wasn't just kind of heartless marketing. I went up to my boxes and to have a look to find something. And I was looking through, and I found about 3 or 4 different things that I absolutely love, but I've had for over a year, and I've not used it. And I just thought, I'm just adding more stuff, more nice things to the box, and not enough is kind of coming out. And what I wanted to do was to find something that I really, really loved, but I wanted to set it free. And I wanted to give it to someone who could use it sooner rather than later, because that always happens. When you get something new, you just use it straight away. And if it's been in your stash for a while, you can love it, but using it just doesn't happen as quickly as you do when you get something new. I don't know, there's probably some kind of law of physics attached to that, some law of stash, but that's just what happens, isn't it? You get something new and you cast that on straight away, and the other gorgeous stuff you've got, you kind of forget about a little bit. So I did that, and I picked out something that I think is beautiful. Forgot the wrapping paper, as did Nick and Stedders, so we all wrapped ours in newspaper, so I couldn't automatically pick either of their stuff because it was wrapped in newspaper and I might accidentally pick my own stuff again. So I went for, I'm not going to lie to you, I went for the prettiest paper with butterflies on, because my best friend loves butterflies, and my parcel contained a scarf, and it was a hand-woven scarf in, well, loads of colours. It's almost like tartan, really, but there's loads. It's all done in 4-ply. The main kind of body of it is a really dark purple, and then through all of the weaving and the how it's been done is all these different other colours. And Liz made it. She wove it herself. I couldn't speak when I opened it. I was just so shocked that I've got this amazing scarf, and it was weird because I was like, I'm so glad I've got something that's already made, because now I can enjoy it straight away. And I wore it to a networking meeting on Wednesday to Aberdeen on the train. I was like, got on the train with my little scarf on, got my swag on, got on the train, I'm like, move over, I've got this awesome scarf, people. Even though I forgot my knitting for 3 hours of being on the train that night, I had my awesome scarf, so it didn't matter. And yeah, she made it, she wove it, and she'd used a lot of scraps from old projects as well, so it kind of feels like there was that project that she made for me or whoever got it, but then there's all these other projects kind of woven into it as well, and some of them have got little bits of sparkle in, and it's really, really, really lovely. I was really thrilled with that. Everyone was jealous, and of course I got up and started swagging around the living room with it and showing off, as you do. So I was really, really pleased with it. It's really nice. I did have a little bit of yarn envy. Steada's got a skein of Countess Ablaze, sparkly dark grey sock yarn that I think Amy had given into the swap, and that was really lovely. But I was super glad that I got the scarf. So yeah, it's my special good luck networking scarf now. It seemed to go well on Wednesday night, so we'll see how we get on with that. On the Saturday, we went out to Stash in Chester, which is a yarn store, and that is situated, it's just kind of outside of Chester. It's only about 10 minutes away from where we're staying, on an industrial estate. And we spent the morning in there knitting and drinking tea, and I basically watched everyone else going mental and buying loads of yarn. But I've reached this kind of yarn stash stasis point at the moment where I can't face adding any more to the stash until I get rid of some of it and knit some of it, or give some away, or do something with some of it, because I just want it to be free. So maybe I could give my children away and I'd have more time to knit. That is a possibility. But yeah, there was just nothing that was crying out to me enough for me to buy it, other than a teeny tiny crochet hook for doing beaded knitting, because I'm planning on once she's written it and arranged it, attending a workshop on beaded knitting with Claire Devine in Edinburgh, whose book I reviewed last time. She does workshops at Ginger Twist Studio, so I'm hoping to get down to one of those and do that. So I have my little crochet hook ready, and I also bought a little darning needle holder. It's like a little kind of screw. It came with 3 different sizes of darning needle, and it's a little screw top thing, little tube, so you can put other ones in there as well, which would be handy for my little kind of accoutrements bag. So I bought those. I'm not going to lie to you, I was massively tempted by the £75 abde circular 10mm needles that had a little see-through bit in the tips that was filled with Swarovski crystals. I was tempted. My budget did not stretch that far, and I don't remember the last time I knitted with 10mm needles, but still, very pretty, very cool. Reminded me of those, you can get some Swarovski crystal filled champagne glasses that completely needlessly over the top but sparkly, and everyone loves sparkly, don't they? So yeah, I was quite restrained. Other people maybe not so much, including Nick, who not only bought loads more yarn, but also bought loads more yarn in the exact same colours of yarn that she bought last time I was with her, that she bought for the Malone jumper, which was just hilarious. She obviously likes that, kind of like emeraldy green and magenta. So that was really cool and well worth dropping in if you like your yarn. In the afternoon, we went into Chester and had a bit of a walk around, and Nick gives a bit of a tour and told us about the Roman stuff and things, which was really interesting. And then we popped over to Patisserie Valerie to have some tea and cake, and there was a PodRetreat meetup. I got to meet some people that I've spoken to on the internet and never met in real life. Kath Wood and Dee Becks were from Ravelry, and also Daisy Frog, who is neither a daisy nor a frog, but is very lovely, and was chatting to them as well, which was good. Though unfortunately there was some ladies down the far end of the table that I just didn't get a chance to chat to because there was that many of us, they were quite far away. So yeah, we had a bit of cake, and then afterwards we had to take a detour on the way home to Toys R Us. Other toy shops are available, but I couldn't find the one I was looking for in Chester. So I had to get an engine. Her Britannic Majesty's obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine at the moment, so I had to get her an engine to take home. Even though she refused for 2 days on the trot to speak to me on the phone, I still got her an engine. But there you go. That's Mummy's for you. And Amy enjoyed that thoroughly because she got to go and look at the Doctor Who toys. And we've got to much maligned pink Lego. In fact, that was a bit of a theme of the week because how much pink Lego is irritating. But that is a whole other podcast, I think. And on the Saturday evening, we did a bit of a skill swap. And Liz showed us how to do beaded knitting, and that was really interesting. Nick taught us how to do toe knitting, toe braiding, and that is how the Vikings made ropes. And I can't explain it to you because I don't even know what she was doing, but she was doing something with her hands, and the rope was attached, the yarn was attached to her toes, and it was making a rope. But it was very complicated. So I haven't tried it since, for fear that I'll end up just kind of tied up and shaking in the corner of the room, really. But I also started my Fur Isle knit-along, which is a knit-along that's been run by Nick in the Yarns from the Plane podcast group. I have a project called White and Colourful that I mentioned way back when on the podcast that I've wanted to do, that was originally done by Suf, who is one of the listeners, my lovely listeners, and I've been wanting to do this pattern for ages, so I started it, and Nick showed me what to do and how she does her Fair Isle, and I cracked on with that on the way home. It's not the neatest or best Fair Isle, I don't think, in the history of the world, but it's not bad for a first attempt, so I'm pretty pleased with it. And I finished one mitten, and I'm going to start the other one soon, so hopefully there'll be pictures of that, or maybe even a finished object for you on the next podcast. But if you would like to try Fair Isle, or indeed join in with the knit-along, it is ongoing. It only finishes on Easter Sunday, so there are prizes to be won. So if you would like to give Fair Isle a bit of a bash and want a knit-along to cheer you along while you're doing it, then pop over to the Yarns from the Plane podcast group and join in the knit-along fun. On the Sunday, it was just basically a get up and go, really. It was quite far for me to go back. It's, like I say, it's 5 hours. And I wanted to be back before bedtime because poor old Millie had been at home on his own with 2 children and 2 dogs for 4 days. So I wanted to get back in time for that. But I'm very much looking forward to, hopefully, the next PodRetreat. There's plans to take it on the road around the country. So I hope there'll be another one this year, to be honest with you. Nick, Amy, if you could possibly cope with it, it'd be awesome. And maybe we can even do one up in Bonnie, Scotland. And Louise Caithness Craft Collective doesn't have to organise it, I'll do it for her, but we could have one in Scotland, it'd be quite good fun. So I think with all the kind of crazy clone, swan, art, porn, I think we better just move on to the pattern pick. So back again with another pattern pick. Much easier this time to pick one. And the pattern pick for this week is Unicorn, which was inspired by a random sighting of a unicorn pattern, which was in the Hot Right Now. He's so hot right now. He's a hot potato. Name that film. In the top 20 Hot Right Nows in Ravelry. And I just saw it and I thought, this is too good an opportunity to miss. There are bound to be some comedy patterns associated with unicorns, and I have to tell you, I was not disappointed. So the pattern that inspired it all is the Unicorn Curl by Naomi Furtado, which was published in Ruby Knits. It is a paid for pattern, and it's $3.50. It is a pattern for a knitted unicorn. Well, I wrote balaclava / snood. Probably snood is closer than balaclava because it's just one big face part, not, little eye holes. And it's done in a bulky yarn, so it'd be quite a quick knit. It's complete with ears and a little unicorn horn and a coloured mane. It looks really cute on the model, and as I said, it's a bulky yarn, so it should be pretty quick to work up. And it comes in all sizes from 3 to 6 months up to adult sized. Next up is the Arigurumi Unicorn Horn by Juliana McDuffie. this is a free pattern for a crocheted amigurumi unicorn horn, which you can attach to a hairband so that you can wear it. And I've just quoted some from the pattern description. It says, inspired by my 4-year-old for dressing up and making believe with a silver thread woven in, it's unicornalicious. Which is probably the best adjective I've heard all week, to be honest with you. Unicornalicious. Don't say that when you've had a few drinks. But yeah, that'd be quite cool. It's quite handy kind of way to attach it to your head without the need for chin straps. More on those later. Next up, and obviously not a pattern pick goes by where we don't shoehorn in a cat looking stupid in some kind of knitwear. So we have the unicorn costume pet cat dog hat headband, covering all bases there, by Lindsay Smith. This is a paid for pattern, it's $5, and it is a crocheted unicorn headband for a cat or a small dog. The horn is 3-dimensional and stuffed, and it basically the headband is tied under the chin. I can only assume it's tied very tightly to keep it on said unsuspecting animal. And she says, this is made for a cat, but it could also fit an average sized Chihuahua, Pomeranian or Shih Tzu. If you like this, check out my other pet costume hats. Well, that was pretty much a red rag to a bull, so I had to smash straight into her back catalogue of patterns, and it would seem there are an entire range of hats of various different themes, all of which have been modelled by her pet cat. Now, I can only assume this cat is actually a stuffed one. I think it's a taxidermy cat. I think it's actually dead, and she just uses it to model her cat hats, because nobody I know has got a cat who would sit there and pose with bunny ears on, or indeed a frog mask, with the same face every time. So I think it's a dead cat personally. But if you feel a need to humiliate your cat by putting a unicorn hat on it, please don't do it to the small dogs. The small dogs have not asked for this. Then that pattern, think about queuing it. But just in case you do need a unicorn hat for your dog, you could check out the Unicorn Dog Hat by Sarah Sack, which is $3.99, and it is a crocheted dog hat for small dogs. I don't think I've seen a more peed off looking dog modelling ridiculous knitwear yet, and I have seen some dogs in knitwear, let me tell you. I don't know whether he's annoyed just because the hat's made out of acrylic, or whether he's just like, dude, have you seen the state of this hat on my head? There are no projects for this. I'm not entirely surprised, and I don't understand again why it's always the small dogs that get all the jip. Surely it'd be far more funny to put a dog hat with a unicorn horn and some rainbow hair on a Rottweiler. I mean, am I missing something obvious here? It would be more hilarious. So yeah, if you want a hat for your small dog and you want him to hate you forever and wee on the side of your couch, I'd recommend making that. If it didn't need to get any more weird, really, then you could make a unicorn headband for your 18-inch doll. The pattern's $4.50, and it's by Natalie Scrimshire. The doll looks a little bit creepy. I don't know if it's just the angle that they've taken the picture at, but it looks like the ears on the unicorn headband look like little devil horns. I mean, they're not in the right colour, but they are the shape of devil horns. So again, I don't think there are very many projects for that either. I'm certainly not going to be making one for Poppy, for Izzy, no way. So anyway, onwards again to the dueling unicorn hat by Benjamin Wilson. This is a free pattern for a unicorn hat, complete with a chin strap, and it was solely chosen initially due to the main project picture of a chap wearing this hat leapfrogging over a post. I mean, that's going to make you click if nothing else does. But then I clicked on it and I saw the description, which reads, "On guard, whether you are one of these virgin-loving medieval beasties, a saccharine, fairy, sick steed, or a badass baby-eating shadavar, the time has now come to defend yourself. Unicorns of the world, prepare to battle. The unicorn hat is knit in the round and fits even my freakishly large head. The bridle detail ensures a chic close fit and ensures that you remain armed even in the most violent of combat situations. Which I just thought was hilarious. I'm like, can you really imagine? It's not Warhorse or anything, is it? Unicorns fighting. It's kind of not how it goes, but this guy looks hilarious, and his mate's got on a different picture with it on as well. They look like they had a right good laugh, mincing around some town centre taking pictures for that project. So check that one out. And the last one was, I was just really impressed by this one, so I've put it in. It's not even that funny, really, but it's quite impressive. It's called Fanciful Friends by Nina Isaacson. It is $9.99 and it is a knitted pattern for a hobby horse head. But obviously it's not a hobby horse, it's a hobby unicorn. And in that description it says, whether vanquishing villains or racing under rainbows, any child will have imaginative adventures while romping around on a hobby horse. The unicorn head is knit similarly to an oversized sock and styled with a colourful mane, a matching tail for the child to wear, and, of course, a golden horn. So, if your child is bored of their ordinary hobby horse, maybe you could make it a fanciful friend instead. That concludes the unicorn pattern pick for this week. If you would like to check out any of those patterns, they will be in a set in my queue on Ravelry. Yes, I actually have to queue all of these items, including the dodgy thongs, etc. And I will put a link to that in the show notes if you're not sure where to find that. And you can check out all of these projects too. Well, folks, that's pretty much it for this week. I think you've had quite enough of the sci-fi 70s clone porn art and the unicorns and the swans for 1 week. Thank you very much for listening and for joining me again, and thank you to any new listeners that have joined us this time. Hopefully you'll be back again, possibly not, depending on how you feel about fantasy porn art. And all that remains for me to do is to wish you a great week, happy crafting, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye! You've been listening to the Shiny Bees podcast. Show notes for the podcast can be found on the blog at shinybees.com. I'm Shiny Bees on Ravelry and on Twitter. The Shiny Bees group on Facebook. You can email me at info@shinybees.com or leave a comment on the blog. Everything relating to the Golden Skein can be found at thegoldenskein.com. Music for this episode was kindly provided by Music Alley by Adam and the Walter Boys, I Need a Drink.